I will call this regular meeting to order at 6:32 p.m. Commissioner Barantes, would you mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Thank you. Okay, Adrian, can we please call roll?
Commissioner Barantes,
Present.
Commissioner Cabot,
Present.
Commissioner Huerta,
Present.
Vice Chair Dong, Chair She.
Okay. We know that Vice Chair will be joining us shortly, but we can go ahead and, do we have enough for a quorum? We do? Great. We will move to item number 1, approval of the agenda order. Are there any objections to the agenda order? Great. Hearing none, the agenda order is approved. Adrian, oh no, no motions. We're good. Okay. We will now have a few announcements by Community Services Manager Matthew Morales-Stevens.
Tonight's meeting is live streamed on Cable Channel 3 and our online platforms. If you wish to address the Community Services Commission during tonight's meeting, we request that you please complete a speaker's card and hand it to the clerk, Agent Franquez. When speaking, please state your name for the record. If you wish to be added to the distribution list to receive Community Services Commission agendas, please email your request to cscommission@sgch.org.
Wonderful. Move on to agenda item number 2, public comment. This is the time set aside for members of the public to address the Community Services Commission on items of interest that are not on the agenda, but are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Commission. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the Community Services Commission cannot answer any questions or take any action until such time as the matter may appear as an item on a future agenda. Adrian, do we have any public comments for tonight's meeting?
We do not.
Okie dokie. We'll move on to,
Moving right along.
yes, item number 3, action items. Approval of the minutes. The minutes are a record of the official actions taken at the Community Services Commission meeting on April 1st, 2024. Matthew, do we have any public comments on that item?
We do not.
Wonderful. The time for public comment on this item is now closed. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the Community Services Commission regular meeting on April 1st, 2024?
I'll so move.
I second.
Wonderful. Adrian.
Commissioner Barantes,
Aye.
Commissioner Cabot,
Aye.
Commissioner Huerta,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dong and Chair She are absent. Motion passed by a vote of 3 ayes, 0 nays, 0 abstentions, and 2 absent.
Moving item number 4, discussion items. 4A, events and program updates. Staff to provide a recap on past events and update on the planning process for certain programs and events. Matthew, do we have any public comment?
We do not. All right, so I'll go ahead and just walk through. We just hosted our Cinco de Mayo Mercado on Friday, May 3rd from 5:30 to 9:30 in the Mission District. I would say the only major kind of downside was the fact that people didn't stay until 9:30. People pretty much cleared out by 8:45, which is an indication that we don't necessarily need to host it so long. Or we book entertainment through further into the evening, depending on what the feedback that we receive from Pez Cantina, the one selling the alcohol, because we want to make sure that, of course, they made enough to justify them being there and continuing to come back. So once we are able to meet with them and get feedback from the vendor booths, then we'll be able to see if it's worth cutting it down by a half hour. It obviously saves money on staff time for what that's worth. And then there's just no reason for the street to be closed if there's not an event happening. But everyone worked really great, and everyone was cleaned up and out of the street was open by 11:30. So, which was kind of a record for us to be able to get that size of an event with that many vendor booths. There was, I think, 17 artisan vendors, and then somewhere in the realm of like 15 community groups. Telemundo was the media sponsor for the event, and they did almost about a dozen news releases for us, which I think helped with the attendance. I can't say definitively, but I would imagine that that level of output to that specific community helped our attendance quite significantly. At one point, the streets were kind of shoulder to shoulder. It, of course, was not like that when it first opened, and then not like that at the end, but right in the kind of meat of the event where all of the performances were taking place. That's where we got a pretty solid turnout. Our goal was about 5,000, and I think we were somewhere around that mark throughout the event.
And do you have an estimate?
So my numbers could be off, but that seems like a pretty reasonable marking. The entertainment that we had was Mila and Friends, Zipetotec, which are Aztec dancers, so folklorico dancers, Aztec dancers, and then Los Choriceras mariachi fusion. And so they were completely different than any performance that we've had at the Mission District. So we're certainly taking council's direction, which is to mix things up. And I think Anna Casillas, the recreation supervisor who led the event, did a fantastic job taking that to heart. I think it was helpful having someone who had not done a city event before put something on, so that way they're coming in with a fresh mind. New to the event were two inflatable attractions. So there was a soccer attraction and then a slide. So they were at each end kind of capping off the event to make sure that no one was left without anyone at their booth, whether they were selling things or just looking to distribute information. So it was very well thought out. There was a lot of thought that went into the placement of the booths, as well as kind of who was there and who was performing. And sorry, the last item. I guess that was it. My apologies. If there's any questions, I'll take those before I move on to the next upcoming event. Okay. So our next event is Play Day, which is taking place on Saturday, May 18th over at Vincent Lugo Park, down at the back portion by the La Laguna Playground, so in that cul-de-sac driveway, and then the actual playground. So the ceremony will take place at 11:30 with City Council and members of the Friends of La Laguna nonprofit will be there and share a little bit of the history. There'll be kids' crafts and other fun things for kids to do. And then we'll have a special filming, so we're encouraging people to come back at 8 p.m. So there's quite a gap, obviously. The event is from 11 to 2, but if people want to come back to Vincent Lugo in the same area at 8 p.m., there'll be a showing of, it is called Lou Over the Wall. It's an animated film that will be shown in Japanese, and then it'll have English subtitles. I was able to watch it with kind of a dubbed English, and it seems like the kids will really enjoy it. It has a lot of kind of intricacies that I think the parents will understand, but the excitement that the kids will likely enjoy. So all of that's posted on our website. It's also on the flyers that were distributed, so hopefully people will jump back at 8 o'clock to view it.
So apologies for being late today. For La Laguna, where are we in terms of the repairs? I know there have been really good renovations done so far. Will all of the different activity areas be open in the playground by the time this happens?
I'd have to double check. I think there's just one left to redo, and I don't know if it will be done by then, so I'd have to double check on that exact status.
But they're close to completion then? it
Correct.
looks like.
Any other questions?
At 8 p.m., or is there any food any vendors?
There won't be any food vendors. There will be one food truck at the Playday event, but we just don't know what the turnout will be for the film screening.
Okay.
So there'll be popcorn that staff will be serving, but there won't be any food trucks.
Okay.
And then just to kind of save the dates, we've talked about Culture Fest, which will be taking place on Thursday, June 13th. We had a fantastic meeting with Commissioner Huerta, who provided some amazing resources. So I'm sure if we are able to continue working in that capacity with the mission, that we'll be able to build that bond even more. I think one of the key takeaways is that it's a melding pot. It's kind of a reflection of the city, the mission. So if we can tap into some of those resources more and bridge the resources, then the city and the mission can work more cohesively, since they're literally across the street from each other. It would make the most sense. But it should be a fun event for the community, as well as educational, which is our major item. We were in contact with a nonprofit who's going to be providing the majority, if not all, of the entertainment for the night free of charge. Their entertainment is not just, let's say it's a music group that does singing and playing instruments. They would have a portion of it that would be dedicated to educating, maybe it's the historical significance of an instrument or the type of dance that they're doing, as well as the actual performance itself. So again, different than what we've offered on that stage in the Mission District.
Yeah, this sounds really exciting. I know we talked about in the last meeting about what Culture Fest actually means and how that could be misconstrued. Apart from a Commissioner Huerta, who would be a great advisor on this, have you talked to anyone else to make sure that it sort of meets the muster of someone, sort of a very public agency that is exposed on TikTok and YouTube and all these other social media forums, and parts of what might be happening in Culture Fest might be misconstrued in the media? Have you talked to a media consultant about what we're planning to put on?
We definitely haven't talked to a media consultant. That's not in the budget to pull something like that. But we have looked at what other cities have offered to be sure that we're either in alignment or doing something kind of above and beyond, but wouldn't be misconstrued in any way. We have met, or we've also called upon some of the Native American tribal leaders to get their input and hopefully participation in the event, as well as the community groups will be representing their cultures that they already are familiar with. So in that way, it's not someone who's representing a culture that they're not familiar with as well. So I don't know if that answered your question, but those are the steps that we're taking.
Okay. Do you happen to know who is participating apart from the mission?
I don't yet. No, not off the top of my head.
Yeah, I was going to say, are you reaching out to just residents or just certain groups?
We're really looking for community groups, the existing community groups like La Casa or AYC, who are rooted in a particular culture or tailor their services to a particular group that can provide some additional insight. And then the next event, of course, we're having our summer concerts and movie series. The full lineup will be available online within the next week or two. And then the Independence Day event it is fully confirmed to take place over at Gabriel High School, July 3rd, which is a Wednesday, from 5 o'clock to 9:30, with the drone show happening at 9 o'clock. It'll take place on the baseball field, which is to the right-hand side of the large parking lot with the solar panels. Well, technically, it's a baseball/soccer/softball field. Really the only green space they have on the campus that's visible from the street. There'll be a large stage, so if you are familiar with Lunar New Year, it'll be something to that scale most likely. With live performers on there. There'll be likely one paid performer who we were able to lock in today, and then we're hoping to get more community entertainment, so free entertainment that people will enjoy seeing, versus a paid performer, as exciting as they are, it's not as meaningful sometimes as a community group. So if you're familiar with someone local, even if it's a nominal fee, please send them our way, because we would love to have them up on stage with us. We're anticipating about 6 food trucks to be stationed inside of that same footprint. It will be different from our other events in that it's a closed situation, meaning that there's one point of entry, and then there will be 1 or 2 points of exit throughout the event, and then there'll be multiple exits at the end of the drone show, which essentially ends the event. So with that said, given that there's so much fencing and there's not a lot of space, for example, the Mission District, if an incident occurs, people can go wherever. In that space, that's not the case. So there will be security and a checkpoint at the time of arrival. So when people check in, they will have to go through a metal detector, and there will be limitations to what people can actually bring into the event. So people won't be able to bring in large coolers because that would be too much for the security to check through, and then the line would be far too long. we realize that that's not the most exciting thing for people to have to do at a community event, but given the closed-off nature of the campus and that particular space, our police department has advised that it's the safest option and the safest route.
Are they going to limit the number of people that can go in then? I would think
Yes.
so.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it'd be kind of pointless to have the security there.
Yes. So we just did the layout, I believe, not this last week, but the previous week. And so PD and fire, mostly fire, will be able to advise exactly what the capacity is, and fire will be working closely with the security company on the day of, who will be checking people in and updating them on the count. That way they can advise when to shut the gates. We're
Because
looking,
People can be outside of it and still see
Mhm.
it, which
Yeah.
they do over here at
Mhm.
the country club. You know, I mean, it's all over the place we watch.
Right.
So it's only if they feel they need to see the entertainment that they need to be in there.
correct.
Okay. Can they bring backpacks with the picnic in or not?
They can, and most likely we'll be pushing people to do like clear
Clear.
bags or clear backpacks. That way it's easier and we'll get them through quicker. But yes, they can bring a full picnic if they'd like. It would just need to be kind of more compact.
Visible.
Mhm.
Visible, okay.
Is there a reason why the drone show is starting at 9 PM earlier? It seems a bit late.
Sure, so they needed to ensure that it's extremely dark for the people to actually get the full impact of the drone show. And given the time that sunset happens in July, they need to be sure that they can prep and everything while there's darkness happening at the same time, if that makes sense. So they can't just have sunset and then launch. They need to have some overlay.
Right. It's a very late time for a lot of families.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know when Alhambra starts their fireworks show or San Marino.
Yeah, so fireworks, the requirements for fireworks are a bit different than the
Or
drone
different,
show.
Okay, so drone shows require more of a nighttime sky. Okay.
I was going to say, they have to have some dark
Mhm.
to do it. And I don't think Alhambra's is any earlier than that. If I remember, theirs is always late.
So is San Marino.
Double check.
Yeah, huh? Yeah, it's always late.
Is it a 9 or something?
Well, it's getting close, between 8:30 and 9, they have to wait until it's completely dark.
Complete, before it's dark.
Yeah, it's summertime, it takes the
Mhm.
sun a long time to go down.
I remember it being around 8:30
Okay.
for the fireworks show. So, I mean, I know it's a 30-minute difference only, but for a lot of families, it does get kind of late in the night to have the
Mhm.
kids out.
So what time does it start?
Starts at 5 o'clock.
Okay, and then the show's at 9 o'clock.
Correct.
And it's the night before.
Correct. So presumably people have the day off and
Yeah.
can
On
hopefully
Thursday.
do other things if they'd like to on the actual Independence Day.
The holiday is the day of, July 4th.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the 3rd,
Yeah.
so they can stay up late and then sleep in the next day.
Will tickets be required to go in?
We're still working out logistics to see if it would be better to do tickets or more of a hindrance to get people in the door. I don't have an answer for you at this time. So the Mission Playhouse is potentially getting a new registration software. If that happens, then that would allow us to scan tickets. But if we utilize the existing software that Community Services has, we'd have to check names, and then people would never get in the door. But if the Playhouse software gets approved and launched in time to be able to advertise it with enough time, then it's just as easy as scanning their ticket from their phone or from whatever they've printed. So there's a lot of logistics, unfortunately, that are kind of up in the air to be able to make it a smooth process for participants. And also that the idea would be behind pre-registration that people will be hopefully more prepared if they've pre-registered versus those that are just showing up because of the list of requirements that they would have prior to entering the event space.
Well, this is our first year doing it, so there's a high learning curve.
So just to be clear, there is a registration program that's in the process of being approved for just the Playhouse,
Correct.
not for the rest of city services. Is there a reason for that? I thought we were combining the two.
So the most of the rec softwares, as we've done more research, don't do assigned seating ticketing, which is what the Mission Playhouse requires in order to operate for a lot of the customers that we service. So the only other option was to have a separate service for the Playhouse to be able to accommodate that. Also doing like a check-in for by name wouldn't be conducive for a theater production. We still have it on the docket to get a new software for community services to run classes or anything that our division needs to take care of. But that wouldn't happen until after July 1 if it's approved by council.
Was there a reason why this was perceived as priority over the other registration software?
So it's not necessarily priority, there's just less of a budget impact. There's a very small startup cost for that because essentially the company gets the revenue from, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be, from the sales itself, or it's just the initial startup cost and they're done. I'd have to double check exactly. Whereas Rec Pro, it's an initial, to get a new service, it's a very large startup fee. We're estimating somewhere around 30,000, and then there's a large annual fee that goes along with it. Yeah, I should also add that the Playhouse recoups a lot of the cost per ticket because the Playhouse, regardless of whether it's an in-house or exterior event, is typically going to be $2 per ticket that gets brought in every event. So you're offsetting the cost of the service that way, which is a lot less, again, than what our service would be.
Would Eventbrite have something where people can register for free? But
There is,
I've never use it in the sense of being the one that's hosting it. I know a lot of events use that to register for free and whatnot, so I don't.
yeah, we certainly could use that, and we've explored that option, but then we start marketing outside of the city very heavily, as the system naturally pumps it out to, someone in Pasadena, for example.
Yeah, it says
Oh, you may
local
like
nearby
this.
events.
And with the confined event space, we're concerned that then the city residents might get pushed out by people that have heard about it from a bit further away.
I wonder if you can add a question, San Gabriel resident, yes, no, but then people could lie. Yeah, okay.
So as soon as all of the information is confirmed, we'll let you know. There is a committee of 2 council members as well, the mayor and vice mayor, that will be advising. We're pulling out all of the logistics, excuse me, trying to get as much kind of in place as possible, not confirmed, but in motion, and then they can either, make amendments from there or scrap it if they choose, or, give the stamp of approval and have us book everything.
This is a community service event or community development event?
Community services.
Okay, well, I would say with tickets, oh gosh, it'd be great if we could do tickets because I know you could recover some of the costs.
Oh, like a paid event,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, but at the same time, the registration software, I don't think it's anywhere where it needs to be to have a big group of people
Right.
show up for one event and then, the number of staff that you have. But I'm looking forward to it. I've never seen a drone show live before.
Excellent. So that's all the report that I had for you for this agenda item, unless there's any other further questions.
So yeah, I do have a couple of items I wanted to bring up. Anyone else want to jump ahead first? So I went to the pentathlon earlier. That was fantastic. That was set up by the city, and there was some events leading up to it where the kids got to train at the various elementary schools. That was really fun. Also went to the second round, I guess, pentathlon for San Gabriel Valley, which also includes residents from Santa Clarita. I'm not sure how they're part of San Gabriel Valley, but they are. So it was a really good showing for Temple City brings a lot of kids. So I'm not really sure why, in terms of population size, I think it's pretty comparable for a city of San Gabriel, why they're able to just collect the number of kids that they do from their schools versus us. I mean, there was maybe a handful, maybe 5 kids who showed up from San Gabriel. But it's such a good program, and it's, it really lends itself to this active and fit lifestyle, especially for kids. I would love to see more families participating. I know it requires a lot of staff hours, so it might not be possible because it's an after-school program that has to be run. The second thing is, swim. Obviously, it's a hot topic during the summer, quote unquote. And, I mean, as a small business owner, I have to say that, labor issues have been, I mean, I don't think the word challenge covers it. There has been, staffing issues and trying to manage your staff since the pandemic started has been a real burden for a lot of small businesses. So with that being said, I did receive a couple of concerns from parents about the start of the spring swim season, where basically at the start of it, April 20th, I believe, parents showed up with their kids. No one came to open up the pool. There was no staff. There were no lifeguards. So I was wondering if you guys could address that point and see if there's something that we could do in terms of messaging parents in advance so that they're not bringing the whole family out for swim if they're supposed to have swim.
Sure. Yeah, so all of the participants were notified in advance. They all received an email. Quite a few of the parents, when we were speaking with them, would pull up the email as we were talking to them. While I wish I could call all of the parents, it's just not feasible to do that in that time frame. But an email was received, or at least sent to them. Whether it was received and went to junk mail is that I couldn't say for sure. But an email was sent, and the notification was made. Those follow-up phone calls were made for those who did have the concerns. I wish that there was a better way. I know that the supervisor who oversees aquatics sent follow-ups via constant contact to see who actually opened it and who didn't, which was helpful, so then we could just call them that way. But again, that's very labor-intensive to be sure that people are actually reading the emails that we're sending. But we did it to be sure that they showed up to the rescheduled class. Well, it was not technically rescheduled, but the next class date in essence. So we definitely made some adjustments to be sure that these people that maybe weren't receiving the emails got a follow-up phone call. But even once we sent out the constant contact and it showed that people opened it, people were still stating that they were not receiving the emails, even though that the system showed that they did open it, which it's possible that they opened it and then skimmed to the next email, which we all do if we don't think it's as important as maybe the next one. So to answer your concern, we have addressed it and we should be on track for summer.
Just understanding a little bit more about what led to that cancellation in advance?
Okay, sure.
Was it because of the weather? It was a rainy day?
No, so we had a staff member who we anticipated being able to work that swim lesson who was no longer able to. And we only have 3 WSI certified instructors that could do the spring swim lessons. And when one dropped out, that didn't allow us to do it. Luckily, the pool manager and assistant pool manager have stepped in to carry us through to offer the spring, but the 1 or 2 days notice that we received from that staff member wasn't enough to then implement all of that in time for the first class. So we were able to successfully offer the spring, although we did eliminate a few slots to be sure that we didn't have to cancel the whole thing. We still offered a class to the public.
And when was the email sent out to families?
I would have to look. I don't know that off the top of my head.
I think if this reminds me of what happened during the turkey trot, where, we never got the emails until late at night, the day before. And it's just, in terms of like communications, if there could be maybe several ways of communicating with parents. It could be a text message that gets sent out as a follow-up to, this is what I do for my business, for instance, I'll send an email, because things happen. Staff cancel all the time, right? That's just the reality. Sure. But if you email someone and they don't see it, and that's very likely going to happen, if you send it within 24 hours, then you do want to follow up with a text message. And it's just kind of covering your bases and making sure that you're doing your best to make sure that they are aware that the event that they have put on their calendar won't happen.
Sure.
And so you get less complaints too, right? And so there's less kind of the need to address those complaints, which I'm sure you'd appreciate
Sure.
as well. So, if we can rethink how we communicate in emergency situations, that would be great, because it seems like it's the second time where a lot of parents were like unclear about whether or not something was supposed to happen when it was pre-scheduled in advance.
Sure, we can certainly look at, given our resources. I will say we can't operate as a business, as a government entity. There's only certain types of communication that we can offer to the public. But we can certainly look at what those options would be.
Yeah, SMS messaging, I think, is something that Constant Contact could do if you looked into that.
Perhaps a cutoff time for yourselves, right? If you were to say within 24 hours, so let's say 24 hours happens, and then, or a disclaimer that says, if it's within those 24 hours, we will notify you. But there is the possibility that it won't, it'll be after those 24 hours, or, 16 hours or 18 hours before the event. But certainly, I know what it's like to work with a small infrastructure. So maybe making sure you hit those cutoff times, right? If I don't hear back from them by 10 p.m., then we go into, that mode. Or 3 p.m., 4 p.m., because I know by 5 o'clock, most of the city is shut down.
Right.
So maybe implementing a cutoff time. And that will kind of help move to the next phase. And say, we have a cutoff time, but if it's after that cutoff time, well, then we're just going to have to say we're sorry. We tried. But that's the first thing that comes to mind for me. At when do you say, that's it, we're going to have to pull it?
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Well, I agree with Commissioner Huerta, because the burden shouldn't all be on your staff. Some of the burden needs to be on the people receiving it. Do you say in there, please acknowledge receipt of this at all?
I don't think that particular email did. I know I have one staff member who does a fantastic job of doing that on every single mass email, and then she receives a whole flood back, and then those that haven't responded, she'll follow up with. So that could be a good standard of practice for our office moving forward.
That might be a good idea, because I don't think the whole burden of proof should be on your shoulders. I think the recipients have to take some of the responsibility as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do agree, and sometimes there's, email systems don't allow all the city emails to get through, junk mail filters and whatnot. But I do think that there's a lot of technology out there for communication that we could be using that's very low cost. It does take staff time to look into it and make sure the regulations are followed and all of that. I know there's a lot changing, especially in SMS world. But putting this, sort of notices on the website, things like that. I don't know if you have a web developer on staff 24/7, but someone who could very easily just say, if a parent is looking on their phone, going on the website, oh, this has been canceled, because they wouldn't be able to get a hold of you, it's on the weekend, it's just different ways of communicating. And if someone does pay for a service from the city, I do believe that there's a requirement for the city to offer that service. And if you're changing the requirements around that service, then the consumer should be well informed of that in advance, if possible. So that was the other, just the note on this, on the swim. And also the last point is the registration for the summer camps. Again, it goes back to the registration software. Hopefully at some point in July it gets approved. But again, there were people who were standing outside at 3 o'clock, I believe, waiting to register for summer camp. Summer camp registration doesn't start until 5 o'clock. So it's, if there's a better way of doing this, I think moving it to the afternoon was great, because it allowed families to be able to work during the day and then line up after work, or at least kind of get out earlier to line up for it. But childcare is such an important issue for working families in San Gabriel, and if whatever we can do to make it, to ease the burden a little bit in terms of making sure their kids are being watched during the hours when they're working, that would be great.
Sure.
I think waiting 2 hours outside of the recreation office is probably not comfortable for your staff either, to see them lined up, So if you have any thoughts around that, something that we can consider as commissioners and how to improve that process, that would be appreciated.
Was that line for all the weeks, or just is it every week?
What was that?
Do people line up for the summer camp every week, or that first week?
No, it's just the
Oh.
launch date essentially is when people typically line up.
Okay.
We were able to get everyone that was there. Adrian came up with a great plan of a kind of an appointment system once they arrived. So right at 5, they had either 5 o'clock, 5:30, 6, 6:30, 7 o'clock. So that way if they were there at 5, they weren't having to wait from 5 until 7 to be seated. So while it's not a perfect system, it was a step up from having to wait from 5 to 7 at least. If a new registration software is not launched, then we'll likely go into how we've done swim, which is kind of the register to register. So that way they're not waiting out there at all, except for their half-hour window, which was very successful for spring. And so we're running summer registration. Staff went through, and actually there were 60 open spots for the summer registration that's coming up on the 14th, because people registered like 4 kids in one time slot, but they really only need one time slot for the whole family, which is something we could have communicated a little bit clearer to them. But either way, staff went back and made sure that we could add more people onto those appointment time slots, to be sure that everyone could be, as many people as we could service can be serviced on the 13th. And all of those are residents that have appointment time slots for summer. Unfortunately, we filled up and couldn't offer it to non-residents. But to answer your question, yes, we certainly can make those changes for next summer. They can. That's assuming that we don't have a new registration software, but hopefully that's not the case, and then everyone can mad dash from in their pajamas at home online.
Okay, any other discussions about item 4A, events and program updates? Okay, hearing none, we will be moving on to discussion item B, which is a discussion of the 2024 annual plan. Matthew, do you have any public comments on this action item?
We do not.
The time for public comment on this item is now closed. Are there any discussion items regarding the work plan that we'd want to communicate now among the commissioners?
Not for me.
Okay, hearing none, we were moving through to item number 5, commission reports. At this stage, each commissioner
If I may just briefly, the youth ambassador application was included for item 4B. I don't know if you wanted to take a look at that and vote to move forward with it, or if you want to hold it till next meeting, that's also fine. It would just mean that you wouldn't launch the youth ambassador program until the fall. Either way is fine, but
Okay.
we'll leave it up to the commission.
So it's been moved to the fall now?
So if you don't approve it tonight, then it would need to be moved to the fall.
Should we all take a minute to reflect on this, or do we want?
Well, I would like to make one suggestion, since Commissioner Huerta and I are not going to be here to work on it. It might be a good idea to wait till the new people are on board so that they can give their input and learn a little bit more about it prior. Then by fall, you'll have a full slate of commissioners to work on it, and they might be willing to, they might have some really
Or
good
have a
ideas.
different perspective, right? Different view. I mean, it looks great, but
Yep.
I agree with Commissioner Cabot.
Yeah, I mean, they might come with some excellent ideas, and so I think it's best if we wait till fall. So do you need a motion on that respect? Okay.
So the submission deadline would change then? Because currently it says Friday, May 24th.
Correct. So that deadline, that was assuming that it's approved tonight, and then we would send it out. But if we're not approving, then we just move forward, and we'll come up with a new deadline at the next meeting.
Okay.
So this would be tabled until September because we don't meet in August. Is that right?
If that August falls on a holiday, then
No.
Well, we meet in the summer
the
now.
August would still take place. It's the September meeting likely wouldn't happen because of the holiday.
As well? Okay.
We meet through the summer.
Correct.
Yeah, we meet through the summer.
Okay. I remember that at some point there wasn't a meeting during the summer, and then we brought it back, so I wasn't.
This is the first year that we
This is the first year we've met.
went through.
Last year.
Well, after the
that.
pandemic, we're like, let's just keep going.
So it sounds like we are meeting through the summer, and so the new commissioners would be on board by August, and so we could have a deadline in September. Okay, great.
They come by next month.
Next
They come in June, don't they?
They come in June, so their first meeting would be in June. So you would actually have plenty of time to fine tune that application. You wouldn't want to send it out until maybe the first week of school, maybe the second or third week of school, and then have a deadline sometime late September, because all of the students would just be getting acclimated with their classes, especially if they're freshmen.
Just one comment about the application so far. There's a line that says grade level or year in college. Do they have to be college students to apply?
No, so that wasn't, the initial age range was for 16 to 18, or excuse me, 16 to 19, so they could have been in college, so that's why that was notated there. But if the commission decides to lower the age range, then we would just remove that altogether.
Okay, so 16 plus, 16 to 18,
It was originally 16 to 19.
16 to 19, okay.
The original intent was to capture some community college students or local, early four-year university attendant students that live in San Gabriel.
Depend on the kind of reception you get, who you have.
So I would change that wording then, grade level or year in college to just grade level or year in school. Because otherwise it would imply that you would have to be in college.
Okay, yeah, so it was intended to read like grade level in school or year in,
Right.
so just remove,
Switch college to school,
okay, got it.
unless we make a decision that we only want college students to apply.
Sure.
That would be something we can discuss as well. Anything else we should discuss then, besides the application? So we are moving on to Section 5, Commission Reports. Each commissioner may address the Community Services Commission and public on matters of general information and/or concern. This is also the time for commissioners to report on conferences and/or meetings they have attended. Starting with Commissioner Cabot.
Okay. No, I didn't, I don't recall that I've gone to anything that I need to report. But I would like to say this is my last meeting, and the last 6 years, it's been a real pleasure to serve on the commission. We have an exemplary staff that makes it very, very easy they make us look good, is what I'm saying. So thank you to you and the staff for all that you've done, and I really, really appreciate it. And as I said, I've enjoyed it. There have been some interesting times, but for the most part, it's been a pleasure. So thank you very much.
And moving on to Commissioner Barantes.
So I went to the opening of the farmer's market. It was really crowded for our little booth, so I'm kind of glad we set up there because a lot of people had questions, not only in regards to the little tote, because I wasn't there when it first opened, but they saw all the flyers there and they were asking a lot of questions on that, so it was actually really busy. I haven't seen our booth that busy in any of the events I went to, so it was actually really good. But yeah, I mean, I think we should be a little closer, though, to the vendors. We were kind of off to the side, kind of hidden away. So I don't know if that's something we can change to kind of at least be in the front, maybe, when they're walking in. But I don't know, maybe being out on the side kind of made us stand out a little bit more in a way, I guess. They're like, oh, what's that little tent doing all the way over there? But yeah, no, it was a good event, and hope to have more vendors there, get that parking lot filled up. And then I went to the Cinco de Mayo, and that was good. It was actually pretty crowded when I first got there. We didn't get much traffic while I was there at all. A lot of people were just looking at the vendors and enjoying the food and the shows and everything, so it was a good event. I wish I would have seen the shoulder-to-shoulder crowding over there. That must have been interesting to see. I haven't seen that before, so that's all I got. Just those two events.
Thank you. And Commissioner Huerta?
Thank you. Well, it certainly has been a great working experience these past 6 years. I can't believe it's been 6 years. When Commissioner Cabot said that, kind of jarring, what happened? Certainly, I'm grateful because being a commissioner, or a community services commissioner, has allowed me to be out in the community, meeting residents, listening to their concerns, finding ways of being of service to my fellow San Gabriel residents, and really being a public person has made me understand that I too have a civic responsibility to bring my concerns to the people who can make a difference, who have the power to make those decisions. And so it's been it's really great learning experience for me. I want to say good luck to the commissioners coming in. I'm sure they'll be doing great things. Commissioner Duong and Commissioner Shea have been great to work with, and Commissioner Barantes. I too went to farmer's market, and I just want to make my last suggestion. If on our pop-up, I don't know if there's a way to claim the pop-up and put City of San Gabriel Community Services, because, and I realized this because I was part of the Active SGV, the Mission to Mission event. And as I'm in the booth, my own booth for the mission, I'm thinking, there's no name on this booth that lets people know. I mean, I have a tablecloth and it says Mission San Gabriel, but just having that Community Services Department, people gravitate towards looking for city members, or officials. But overall, it's been really great. And I look forward to seeing all the great things that happen in the future. So thank you.
Thank you. I also went to the tail end of the Mission to Mission event, and that was wonderful. I really enjoy riding my bike. I really enjoy seeing people ride their bikes around San Gabriel Valley especially, so I think that is something we should continue to do. I don't know what the funding is like around that. I know it's not very consistent, but if there's anything we can continue, I would love to see that grow. Also went to the event this past week for Cinco de Mayo, which is one of my favorite events for the City of San Gabriel because that setting is just iconic with the mission in the background. I did sense that the crowd was a little bit thinner than in years past. I think it might be because prom was on the same night for the Gabrielino High School, which might have impacted staffing as well, I'm guessing. I was able to get 3 surveys. I noticed that a lot of people that I approached weren't from San Gabriel. So what I did was I didn't offer them the survey, but I was wondering if we could on the survey just say, where are you from? Because it's also important to know who's actually attending our events. Obviously, our core is San Gabriel. We want to serve the residents of San Gabriel, but it would be nice to know who's actually coming and where the marketing is going. Is it going to more Alhambra residents or Temple City, or is it Pasadena? That might be interesting to collect as well, not just serving San Gabriel residents. So if we can add a line to the survey, that would be great. And maybe on the table itself, the booth where we have set up, if we can have a sign that calls out the survey, we want to hear from you, sign the survey, just so they know that we're looking for their feedback. Otherwise, it's just, on a clipboard and it gets lost kind of in all the brochures that we have set out there. If that's an easy thing that we can do, if you have it lying around, someone can just do a flyer and put it on the stand-up table things. I think it would be easier for us to kind of call it out for people to fill out the surveys.
On the survey, perhaps not a different survey, but on the back, right? When I approach people, I say, are you a resident? They say, no. Where are you from? Alhambra, just visiting, or my neighbor told me, or whatever. But maybe on the back of a survey for non-residents, one side for resident, the other side for non-resident, and make it like 2 or 3 questions that you can ask.
So Chair Shi is not available for comments. So should we move on to the next section? Okay, so moving on to staff comments. Staff members have the opportunity to address the commission and public on matters of general information and or concern. Nothing? None tonight, okay. All right, so I think we can adjourn then. The next regular Community Services Commission meeting will be held on Monday, June 3rd at 6:30 p.m. Information regarding matters to be considered at each meeting will be available on the Friday before. the Community Services Commission meeting on the city's website at www.sangabrielcity.com. This regular meeting is now adjourned at 7:22 PM.